on this Friday edition of Newsline at noon, with Washington warning that the recent execution of the North Korean leader's uncle may be a prelude to a provocation. Pyongyang notifies Seoul it will attack South Korea without warning for allowing street protests against its leader. The government vows to press ahead with a plan to approve a new rail service despite the nation's longest rail strike in history. Striking rail workers want the plan repealed. Plus, nearly 90 people are injured, some seriously, after part of the ceiling of the Apollo Theatre in London collapses during a performance. These stories and more on Newsline at noon. Thanks for joining us. You're watching Newsline at noon. I'm Choi Yuzan in Seoul.
Very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broom. We start with a fresh warning out of Pyongyang that turns up the temperature on inter-Korean relations. North Korea has threatened to strike South Korea. A South
Korean government official who asked to remain anonymous said the North's National Defense Commission sent a fax on Thursday to Seoul's National Security Council through the inter-Korean military hotline, threatening to strike the South without warning. This comes after several conservative groups held rallies in Seoul on Tuesday, protesting North Korea's authoritarian rule and human rights abuses. The North said the rallies insulted its highest dignity, referring to its young leader, Kim Jong-un. In response, the South Korean government said it would react sternly to any provocations by the North. The U.S. government has expressed serious concerns that the recent execution of the North Korean leader's uncle could be a prelude to some kind of provocation. Park Ji-won reports.
General Martin Dempsey, chairman of the U.S. military's Joint Chiefs of Staff, says a North Korean provocation could be in the works following the recent execution of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's uncle Jang Song-taek.
These kind of internal actions by dictators are often a precursor to provocation to distract attention from what they're doing inside of that country. So yeah, if you're asking me, am I concerned? Absolutely.
Speaking at the same Pentagon press conference Thursday, U.S. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel said North Korea's sudden removal of the once powerful Jang increases concerns about the North and deepens the suspicions of the regime's motives.
That nation is as closed as any nation in the world. There is no transparency. There is no interconnect to the outside world.
The execution of Jang is seen by experts as the biggest upheaval in North Korea since the regime conducted its third nuclear test in February. With Jang out of the picture, suspicions are rising about the path the North will take in the coming weeks and months. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
The UN General Assembly has adopted a resolution condemning North Korea for its human rights abuses. The resolution, adopted by consensus on Wednesday, called on the North Korean regime to immediately release its political prisoners and raise concerns about systematic and grave violations of the civil, political, economic and social rights of the people. It also referred to open executions that take place inside the reclusive state. The latest resolution comes days after UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon said Jang Song-taek's execution was a human rights issue and that the UN does not endorse the death penalty under any circumstances. The General Assembly also adopted resolutions on Syria and Iran, expressing serious concerns about human rights violations in the countries. Retired American basketball player Dennis Rodman arrived in North Korea on Thursday, just a week after the execution of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's uncle, Jang Song-taek. In an interview with the Associated Press in Pyongyang, Rodman made clear that his visit has nothing to do with politics, saying he cannot control what the North Korean government does. Rodman added that he is there as a sports figure and said he is putting the finishing touches on a plan to bring 12 former NBA players to Pyongyang for an exhibition game next month to celebrate the young leader's birthday. This is Rodman's third visit to North Korea this year, and he remains the most high-profile American to meet Kim Jong-un since the young leader assumed power 2 years ago.
And back here in South Korea, the nationwide rail strike rumbles into its 12th day on this Friday with no end in sight. Thursday was capped off with a second massive street protest by striking rail workers in downtown Seoul. The state-owned rail operator continues to insist that all striking workers return to their post immediately, but its demands are falling on deaf ears. Our Kim Young-gil reports.
At least 10,000 angry unionized workers from the state-run Korea Railroad Corporation made speeches and chanted slogans as they gathered in front of Seoul Plaza near City Hall on Thursday. Hundreds of police formed barricades around the plaza to prepare for any possible clashes, and thousands of ordinary citizens showed up in support of the rail workers. On day 11 of the longest railway strike in Korea's history, rail workers from all over the nation gathered to protest the government's move to establish a new rail operator, which they claim as being a first step toward privatization.
The government is not providing any answers to our requests not to privatize Korail. Instead, they are just cracking down on our massive rallies, saying they are illegal. We are out here again to protest against President Park Geun-hye. We're asking her to stick to her pledges.
The massive strike comes as police raided 4 regional headquarters of Korea's Railway Workers Union on Thursday with court-issued warrants. The police also said they arrested 2 of the 25 strike leaders for whom the court had issued arrest warrants. The state-owned Korail gave an ultimatum to return to work by Thursday, and so far at least 990 workers have returned. The strike has crippled railway services nationwide, hitting cargo train services the hardest. Freight rail operations are running at 39% their normal levels, and long-distance Korail services at 56% and 61% respectively. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
The mercury level is dropping rapidly here in Korea, and the weather is forecast to get even colder as we head into the Christmas weekend. During this time of year, sagging energy reserves are always a concern, but thankfully, Korea is expected to enjoy a stable power supply this winter. Yoo reports.
The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy on Thursday said the country's power reserves will hover around a safe level of 5 million kilowatts this winter, even when energy usage reaches its peak in the last week of January. That's provided that 3 of the country's 23 nuclear reactors are back up and running again soon, after being shut down back in May for using cables with fake certificates. Officials say the 3 will most likely begin operations again in the second half of next month. But the government did warn that unseasonably cold weather and malfunctioning nuclear reactors could bring about a power shortage. To keep energy usage at a safe level, it said it will offer a special rate cut of 30% on electricity consumed during the least busy hours, while the rate during peak hours may increase to 4 times the normal rate. Companies and shopping districts have also been ordered to keep their thermostats below 18 degrees. Yoo-rian, Arirang News.
The governor of Korea's central bank says local financial markets are doing well, weathering the impact of the U.S. Federal Reserve's decision to start tapering its bond-buying stimulus measures. In a meeting with the heads of local banks Friday, Kim Jung-soo cited the net buying of Korea's stocks and bond markets after the Fed's announcement on Thursday. The benchmark Kospi opened slightly lower at 1,973 on this Friday, while the local currency fell against the greenback and is trading at around 1,061 to the dollar. Now, all that glitters might be gold, but the price of the precious metal has taken a massive hit this year, tumbling a staggering 26%. Despite the downward trend, the chance to buy gold at what some see as a knockdown price has sparked a gold rush of sorts here in Korea. Kwon So-ah reports.
To buy or to sell. That is always the question when it comes to gold. Right now in Korea, customers prefer to buy.
With Christmas and New Year coming up, many seasonal products are being released. Gold bars and seasonal pure gold products are selling well.
With global demand dropping to a 4-year low, Korean gold prices have plunged as well. The price fell from roughly $44 a gram in September to $39 this month. At the beginning of the year, the price was $56. Compared to last year, gold can be purchased at rates that are roughly 30% cheaper. In 2011, the price of gold hit a record high of $67, which is about 40% higher than the current figures. In one jewelry shop in central Seoul's Jongno district, 10 first birthday rings are sold each day, a drastic jump from years ago when it was just 2 rings a day on average. 24-carat rings are a traditional gift for Korean babies on their first birthdays, and their lower price tags these days are enabling more people to afford them. So why did the gold price drop this far?
The biggest reason for the drop in the price of gold is the beginning of the drawdown of quantitative easing, meaning it depends on whether the US dollar is strong or weak.
Economists say that due to expectations the Federal Reserve would begin tapering its quantitative easing program, the price of gold plunged in recent months. After the Fed's announcement Wednesday that it would start tapering its stimulus program, the global gold price dropped 3.5% to a 6-month low of just over $1,190 an ounce, or roughly $43 a gram. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
A new government report shows that Korea's poverty rate across its growing proportion of senior citizens now ranks at the highest in the OECD. The report also points out other key livelihood factors such as average incomes and alcohol consumption. Our Paulie gives us a snapshot of life in Korea based on this new data.
New data released by Statistics Korea this week indicates Korea's elderly population is sinking further into poverty. According to the government agency, the relative poverty rate among senior citizens aged 65 and older nationwide stood at 46% in 2006. That figure rose to nearly 50% last year for elderly households earning less than half the median income. It's a stark contrast compared to the OECD average of about 13%, with Korea ranking the highest among 33 OECD member countries, followed by Australia and Mexico. Other population statistics reveal that the number of Korean workers earning less than the legal minimum wage shrank over the past 3 years. Approximately 1.7 million individuals were counted as part of the country's working poor last year, or about 9.6% of total workers, down from 12.8% in 2009. Consumption of alcohol was found to be high among adults, with an average of 8 out of 10 men drinking at least once a month. Over 26% of men surveyed were found to binge drink more than twice a week, with 6.5% of women also taking part in high-risk drinking. Combined with high levels of reported stress, these conditions place a heavy burden on people's livelihoods. Data from the OECD ranks Korea 26 out of the 36 member nations in terms of overall life satisfaction. People from Switzerland were found to be the most satisfied with their lives, with Germany falling in the middle of the list. The figures represent significant challenges for the government to tackle in order to improve the quality of life here and ensure a sustainable future society. Paul Yi, Arirang News. For your fill of Korean and international news. Join Chae Yu-sun and Mark Broom every weekday at lunchtime. Newsline at noon.
Plenary session this Wednesday and vote on the government restructuring bills.
Scores of people are injured, some very seriously, after the ceiling of a packed Apollo Theatre in London collapsed during a show. Our Connie Kim has the details.
Police say at least 88 people have been injured, 7 seriously, after part of a ceiling in London's Apollo Theatre collapsed during a performance on Thursday evening local time. many of wounded were transported in a double-decker bus to a nearby hospital for treatment. Authorities say that while several people were very badly hurt, no one suffered life-threatening injuries. Police say the collapse occurred at around 8:15 p.m. local time when over 700 people were watching a performance of the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime. Coming a week before Christmas, the Apollo Theatre, like many others in London, was packed to the brim with theatergoers. Witnesses say they heard a strange crackling noise before the collapse, but thought it was part of the show.
We just thought it was sound effects of the theatre, and then of the yeah, and then we just looked up and the whole ceiling, it was like slow motion, just kind of came down.
Shaftesbury Avenue, where the Apollo is located, remains cordoned off by the authorities. About an hour before the ceiling collapse, London was hit by a heavy thunderstorm, but the exact cause of the collapse in the 112-year-old theater is, as yet, unknown. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych has launched an impassioned defense of the multi-billion-dollar aid package he secured from Russia. In a televised news conference Thursday, Yanukovych said securing cheaper gas and credits from Moscow had been the only way to stave off default. Under the deal reached this week in Moscow, Russia said it would buy up to $15 billion worth of Ukrainian bonds and securities and slash gas prices for Ukraine by more than a third. Yanukovych also said he doesn't welcome Western intervention in internal issues, adding Kiev may adopt parts of the Russia-led customs union alongside other former Soviet republics. Opposition groups and protesters continue to rally in the capital's main square against the president's last-minute refusal to sign a trade deal with the European Union. This might not come as too big of a surprise considering his KGB background, but Russian President Vladimir Putin has defended the bulk surveillance activities of the U.S. National Security Agency. Speaking during his annual press conference in Moscow on Thursday, Putin said mass monitoring of communications was necessary in the fight against terrorism, but he suggested the U.S. limit its appetite to snoop on the public. He went on to say that surveillance should be done within a framework of rules, and the U.S. spy agency should be revamped and its relation to the U.S. government reviewed. When asked about former NSA contractor Edward Snowden, Putin said he had never met him and Russia was only offering him asylum.
Turning now to one of the biggest data breaches in history. U.S. retailer Target has warned that data from as many as 40 million credit and debit cards used by customers in its stores may have been compromised. Target says the stolen information includes the names, card numbers, card expiration dates, and 3-digit security codes of customers who shopped in its stores between November 27th and December 15th, the peak of the holiday shopping season. The retailer says it has alerted the relevant authorities and financial institutions to the breach and is working with experts to prevent similar incidents happening again in the future. Customers have been advised to keep a close eye on their debit and credit card statements for any irregularities. Now, Korea is pretty well known globally for its vibrant fashion scene, but you may have been wondering who the best dressed people in the country are. Well, ponder no more, because the Korea Best Dresser Awards were held in Seoul on Thursday night, and our Connie Lee was there.
Meet some of Korea's best-dressed people. From celebrities to politicians, the annual Korea Best Dressers Swan Awards recognize some big names who have style. A total of 14 people won, including Korea's A-list actor Chung Woo-sung and model-turned-actress Ho Jun-hee. Philippine-born lawmaker Lee Jasmine was also awarded as a politician with some fashion sense. She's now become the first foreigner to be given this award.
This award show started in 1983, so it's been 30 years of trying to get Korea's fashion industry in the global spotlight. The winners weren't selected just for the clothes they wear. They were chosen for their sense of style and how they present themselves in an attire that suits them.
Hosted by model agency Model Line and the Korea Fashion Association, the event boasted some 500 guests, including fashion industry leaders from China and Japan. In its 30th year, the Swan Award winners are selected by fashion industry insiders and through online surveys. Other Best Dressed winners include model and actor Clara, ballerina Kim Joo-won, and child actor Yeo Jin-gu. Korean designer Yang Hae-il was also recognized with the Designer of the Year award. Past winners include current President Park Geun-hye when she was a lawmaker, and K-pop stars SHINee and Super Junior. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
Right, well, Christmas is just a few days away now. Very exciting for everyone. And we're going to get a check on the pre-Christmas weather now with our weathercaster, Lee Ji-yeon, who's standing by at the Weather Center. Hello there, Ji-yeon.
Well, good afternoon, Mark and Yusun, and happy Friday to our viewers. As Mark said, Christmas is only 5 days away. Can you believe that?
Right, I know. And I'm sure people will be busy, going to parties, going shopping, getting together with friends and family.
I know, I am so looking forward to it. And to help you get ready, I have a couple of makeup tips for you. Red lipstick has been a huge hit this year in Korea, so try that if you're going out during the holiday season. And beauty experts suggest wearing gold, purple or brown shadow with it for a festival look. And as for today's weather, it looks like we'll have bitter cold temperatures across the nation, but thankfully most of the snow we had this morning has let up, and the clouds are slowly giving way to sun, but then won't give us much relief from the cold. There will also be a sharp wind blowing, which will make it very cold this afternoon. And unfortunately, the outlook for tomorrow doesn't look all that different from today. We'll wake up to freezing temperatures and it will be cold for most of the day, but we'll have plenty of sunshine across the nation. Now, it looks like this unseasonably cold weather should stick around for a few days, so if you'll be out this weekend, be sure to dress in layers with all of your winter accessories. But things should start to warm up on Sunday afternoon. With that in mind, here are the readings for today. The high in Seoul will just get up to freezing, but won't go much farther, while Daegu and Gwangju should peak at 5 and 3 respectively, while Busan gets up to 7. Now for other regions, it looks like Jeju should see a high of 7 in the afternoon, Daejeon and Dokdo will peak at 2, and Mount Hyeongang has a freezing afternoon ahead at -4. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. That's all for me this week. Hope you enjoy your lunch break and have a wonderful weekend. And back to Mark and Yusun in the studio.
Well, thank you very much, Ji-yeon. You have a wonderful weekend too. And those are the stories we're following at this hour. If you want to watch clips of our news programming, you can always access our very comprehensive VOD service, which can be found at www.arirang.co.kr. KR.
Join us again next Monday right here on Newsline at noon.